But Brandon, let's move on into our next team, the Kentucky Wildcats. And to me, when I look at Kentucky, really it comes down to me, uno game. Uno juego is what it comes down to. I hope that's one game. I think it's one game. Hugo. I think I said that right. It's one game. You get what I'm saying. It's one game. And that's the Louisville game. The game they won 41-38. And the guy I want to look at is quarterback Steven Johnson. Because in that game, Johnson, 338 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 INT. Compared to Lamar Jackson did not play well in that game. Notice how I am not using the moniker of Lamar Action Jackson because he does not deserve it for that game because he fumbled 3 times, or he threw 3 interceptions. Basically, turned over the ball 3 times. That is not action-like. So he is just a mere mortal in Lamar Jackson for that game. But Steven Johnson, to me, is the guy that I want to look at going into this season because if he can replicate more performances, more consistent performances like he did against Louisville, and I know that people are going to say, well, Ricky, a Lamar Jackson fumble set us up to win the game. It wasn't all Steven Johnson. Yes, but if Steven Johnson can go and throw for over 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 1-0 interceptions a game with a QBR of 95.2, I will take that. And if he's able to do that consistently this year, Kentucky, who ended their postseason drought next year, could be going to another bowl game this season.
I think that it's really interesting because we've kind of talked about some of these quarterbacks and some of these quarterbacks that seem to finally find how good they were and be able to come into their own in the last part of the season. So to be able to see Steven Johnson, kind of for a full season of, hopefully being able to play well, this Kentucky team may be a team that is able to really put it together. They've got a solid running game. And what they have prided themselves most on for I think, a while now is that offensive line. That offensive line is a very, very stable piece of this offense. And because of that, I think because of that, it's not going to only be Kentucky basketball that's talked about in Kentucky for much longer. I'm not saying that Kentucky's going to be this team that just bolts right up to the top and beats Florida.
You just heard it. They're gonna win the SEC and go to the college football playoff this year.
At least that's what some people would believe. Oh, he said they're not going to be bad. He obviously means they're going to win it all.
Brandon saying Big Blue Nation in the college football playoff. Right, B? That's what you're saying.
No, but I am saying that this team has the opportunity to make strides moving forward. You lose a couple of pieces, at the running back position, at the wide receiver position, but they still have 2 veteran guys to be able to pick that up, at least from the receiver position. And running back, they're still going to be fine as well. The guys that are stepping in there with Benjamin Snell and then Saheem King, that's kind of rising up as well. I am intrigued by this offense, and one reason why I'm really intrigued because when you have a dual threat quarterback, that means that you've got a guy who can kind of do it all. We all know what a dual threat quarterback means, and some people, Deshaun Watson, don't like that term. I'm not a dual threat quarterback, but you are.
Yeah, but he won the national championship, so who's laughing now?
But he wasn't a dual threat quarterback. He was a complete pocket passer.
Yeah.
But I think that
Tom Brady-esque,
the more and more that we see these dual threat quarterbacks, we really like them though. That's the thing is because they are those shifty guys who can do it all, who they look like a running back when they're running, and then they are solid when they're throwing the football, and they look like a guy who could sit back in the pocket all day and do it. So that's what's going to be a lot of fun, I think, to watch for this offense. And I think that they lose their star center on that line, but they have 4 starters returning to a really, really good group who helped the ground game be so solid. And I would expect it to do the same this year. And that's kind of where it starts. That's where it starts. Keep the pressure off the quarterback, open up the holes for the running back, and then you have a nice little success pie on the offensive side.
You know what I just noticed, and this is not necessarily a Kentucky thing. This is a college football thing. What I have noticed is and some people are going to be like, well, Ricky, duh. But in the NFL, usually it's not dual threat quarterbacks that rule the day. Like if I look at the last few Super Bowl winners, just their quarterback, Tom Brady, not a dual threat guy. Peyton Manning, not a dual threat guy. Tom Brady, not a dual threat guy. 2014, Russell Wilson, okay, I'd say a dual threat guy. Broke the mold a little bit. But then Joe Flacco, not dual threat. Eli, not dual threat. Aaron Rodgers, not dual threat. Looking at college football, since Alabama went on their their 2 wins in 11 and 12, because I wouldn't say in those 2 years they necessarily had guys that were dual threat guys, but I look at 2013, Florida State, Jameis Winston, a dual threat guy. Ohio State and their quarterbacks, dual threat guy, especially Cardell Jones. Alabama with in 2015, dual threat, I believe there, and then Clemson had the dual threat. Maybe Alabama was the only one that didn't. Maybe they're the ones that I'm thinking of that did not in 2015, because Jalen Hurts' freshman year was last year. So really, unless it's Alabama, I look at college
Jay Coker
football.
Was I would not consider him a dual threat guy.
That's who I was blanking on who their quarterback was that year. But besides Alabama, it's been dual threat. In the NFL, that doesn't branch over as well. But in college football, if Kentucky can get that going, they can have success in college football. That is my point. It works in college football, and you can be successful with it in college football.
It works in college football, but I think the more and more guys now, but I want to say one more thing too, is that it can work in the NFL. We saw what happened
with the right system.
We saw what happened with Colin Kaepernick before he lost his mind, and the team became crap. I think that he was very, very good as a dual threat quarterback with San Francisco. When they were in the playoffs, they beat the Packers and then paved the way to go to the Super Bowl. He was good. He was a dual threat quarterback, still is a dual threat quarterback, but he was able to do it. Russell Wilson, he's been able to do it. And I think that you've got to be able to have the right guy, right type of guy, right system, like you said, and it can work in the NFL, but we're starting to see more and more and more guys throughout college that's the type of guy that that they have, and that seems to be working. And now we've got a lot of dual threat quarterbacks in the SEC specifically too. And we saw it in the ACC, SEC. I don't know if we see it as much in the Big Ten. Certainly not the Big 12. But I think that we start to see that a little bit more. It's becoming more of a big highlighted thing in college football, and clearly you can win with it.
Well, and with Kentucky, because I want to get back to them really quick, because I kind of feel like we got off a little bit, and that was my fault. My fault.
I will blame you.
A little bit of a tangent. But the thing I look at with Kentucky is if Johnson can play well, I look at their schedule and I go, they have the same thing in common with South Carolina. They start off with 2 easy games, in my opinion, Southern Miss and Eastern Kentucky. If they lose either of those games, just pack it up, season's over. They also play Eastern Michigan. If you lose to them, pack it up, season's over. That's 3 wins right there. Then the rest of your season, besides Louisville, is all SEC games, and you don't play Alabama. You do not play Auburn. You don't play LSU. You play your division, and then the ones from the other division. Ole Miss, who we did get comments that maybe we were too hard on Ole Miss. However, get back to the top, and then I'll respect you again. That's kind of how I am with that.
Were we too hard on them?
Maybe a little. I said they were probably going to be the bottom of the West again for their respective side. But Ole Miss is a team that Kentucky can beat, and that would be a toss-up game. If they could win the majority of the games between like those 4 I was talking about in Mizzou, Vandy, and South Carolina, Kentucky being the other of those 4, the only other team you got to play from the other conference is Mississippi State. And then you got Tennessee, who I'm not even sure how Tennessee is going to do this year. So to me, I look at their schedule and I go, it is exactly like South Carolina's. Win the 3 cupcake games and then just win the majority of those games that are not Florida and Georgia, and you're sitting pretty going to another bowl game for the second straight year. Just win 3 of them, and you're going to a bowl game for the second straight year.
So Kentucky, to be able to do that, their defense is going to have to be better, and their run defense specifically is going to have to be better. They really let teams through on third down as well, and Kentucky allowed 200 rushing yards or more 9 times on the season, and they allowed over 5 yards per carry to opposing running backs and 25 scores. Now, what was it that I was saying for Mizzou? They needed to cut down on the amount of rushing touchdowns that they let up. They gave up 28. Kind of the same. It kind of looks the exact same on the side of Kentucky's defense, is that you gave up too much on the ground. And now you don't want to forget about the passing game, but you really want to kind of hone in and focus on that rushing defense. So I think pass rush should be pretty good, though, is that they've got some guys returning there. They're really deep. I think that's going to be the spot that is going to be the big yes, we've got something working here. But if they are the same defensively against the run, they're not going to win. They're not going to be any better than what they were this year, and they could even potentially go backwards. So they really have to cut down on the amount of yards they give up to opposing running backs.
I want to ask you this. I'm looking at Athlon Sports and their preview for Kentucky, and this is what they have right at the very end. They have, if the defense improves as well, because they're saying that they said before that there's talent on the offense to overcome the deficiencies on defense. If defense improves, the Wildcats could be a dark horse candidate in the SEC race. I want to ask you this. I want to be bold, Brandon, because that's what we are here on the Primetime Podcast. We're brave and we're bold. And I'm going to ask you this. Give me a percentage that this year the Kentucky Wildcats are in the race with Georgia and Florida to win the division. What is your percentage that is the case? Not that they win it, that they are in the race with Georgia and Florida to win the division.
30.
And is it all because of the defense? Is it the defense that makes you think, let's pump the brakes on that big guy?
I guess it's just because last season you won 7 games. To make that jump, boom, you win 3 more games. That's where they would have to be to put themselves, I think, in kind of that contention. Two or 3 more games, and I can't even necessarily go through and guarantee them the 7 games that they did last year. But I'm saying this team can be good. It's got potential to be very good.
And Louisville's gonna have
I'm
revenge.
not done. Is that that's one game though?
Yeah,
I think that the fact that you kind of have to see how some of the other teams are as well. Mizzou's going to be better. Not saying they're going to win it. Not saying that they're going to be in contention with the other ones. But you look at some of these teams and there are here in the middle, and even towards the bottom. There's so many. You could toss this one up. Kentucky, South Carolina, toss that one up. Kentucky, Missouri, toss it up. Mississippi State, I think, is better. They've got a pretty solid offensive attack. Tennessee, that could be a toss up. Ole Miss, that could be. Vandy could be. Georgia, I think Georgia probably wins that one. Then Louisville could be a toss-up, especially with how, Kentucky played against them last year really well. So there are so many games where it's kind of like the political race. Oh, this one's too close to call. This one's too close to call. Too close to call. I can't call for a lot of these wins. For any team, some of them I did. I just kind of, they'd probably win, but
let's be honest. Eastern Kentucky could come out and blow the wheels off and then put a shoe up my rear end.
But that's the thing is that, you know, whenever you do these previews and stuff, you kind of try and get a feel for where they are and everything like that. But then you kind of sometimes have the San Francisco Giants. Wow, man, these guys are going to be really good this year. Oh, they only have 28 wins, man. They really aren't good. So you'll have those surprises sometimes. So it doesn't always happen how you think. But I just don't think that Kentucky's going to have enough firepower. Especially on the defensive side, you've got a lot of work to do to clean up that running, clean up the run defense. You have a lot of work to do to be able to clean that up. So if they're able to do that, then that's when they can start to be in the talks for being able to compete for the top of the SEC East.
Well, and I know that the Louisville game I mentioned is one game, but I'm just going off of there might have been games you won last year that you can't necessarily count to be wins this year because, of course, the cliche goes something about you got to play the game, right? Something like that. That's usually what
something
we say.
Like that. Yeah.
You got to actually play the game. If everything was as easy, we'd just crown a champion right now. But I want to throw it to you guys. Let us know down below in the comment section. What do you guys think for Kentucky? What are they going to do this year? And what are you excited for when it comes to Kentucky football? Let us know down below in the comment section.